Hey everybody, and welcome back to New Math for Parents Explained, where we compare the way we learned math then to the way our kids are learning math now. We want to make sure that the communication is open between educators and parents because that makes our kids stronger, and you'll be able to support your kiddos at home. So we started talking about fractions last week, where we talked about a unit fraction as being one part of the whole. Now, that was new vocabulary to some of us, and that's okay. So, today we're going to continue on with that same level of thinking and using the unit fraction to build content knowledge for us and for our kids and see why it makes sense when we talk about fractions. So, I'm going to go ahead and flip my camera. Okay, here we are. Rethinking fractions. So I'm going to challenge you to think about the things that you learned when you were younger, and I just want you to rethink those. Just have an open mind for me. Okay? All right. So when we were young, we were taught fractions, and we were taught the numerator was described as the number of equally sized shaded or unshaded parts in the total. It is also known and described as the number on top of the fraction bar. And we knew that. Okay. Now the numerator counts the number of unit fractions. The numerator counts the number of unit fractions. Now we started talking about unit fractions last week, but here are those definitions here. And I wanted to put those there so that you can refer to them anytime that you needed to refer to them. So we know that our denominator tells the size of the parts in the whole. The unit fraction describes one part of the whole, and the denominator counts or tells how many. Now this is new to us because usually that's not what the denominator does. So let's talk about why there's been a change in vocabulary and the way we think about fractions. There are so many different ways to think about fractions and so many different meanings. But when I was taught only using the out of language. And what I mean by that is by looking at this example that I have here at the bottom. Then, if I'm looking at a fraction and I know that I want 3 out of 4 parts that are shaded, this is what it looked like. I had 1, 2, 3, 4 parts, so that would be my total number of parts. And I have 1, 2, 3 of them that are shaded. So that's my numerator. So I put 3 over 4. The focus here is mostly whole numbers. Okay? The focus here is mostly whole numbers because we never said anything about an actual value of each one of these parts. But now, this is how our kids are learning it. When we have the same fraction, 3/4, and we have 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. And so if we count those, that means that we have 1/4, 2 1/4, 3 1/4, 4 1/4. So we know that we have 4/4 or 4 1/4 in the whole. And because we know that we have 4 parts in the whole, then we know that one of them is our unit fraction, and that's 1/4. So then we see here that the numerator counts for us. This tells us how many of them we have. This says we have 3. We have 3 1/4. Now, why is this important that the kids get this? This is important because the kids need to know the relationships between the whole and the unit fraction. And they need to know that we are combining these equally sized parts to form more complex fractions. This fraction is called a proper fraction because its numerator is less than the denominator, which only means that we're counting fourths and they are less than 1 whole. That's all that means. So let's look at an example of one using some concrete objects. Last week we started using Cuisenaire rods, and we're going to continue to use those Cuisenaire rods this week too. So we started when we had one brown rod. And we're going to say that that brown rod is one whole. And with this brown rod, we know that we want to partition it into fourths. So partitioning it into fourths means that I will have 4/4. So instead of counting this as 1, 2, 3, 4 and writing 4/4, I'd count this as 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4 is one whole, because we always want the kids to be able to tell us when they've made a whole. We want them to recognize that. That will help them as we move along and start working with more complex fractions. And so it's important that they know that. So if I wanted this to show 3/4, then one of these fourths I'll be removing, but I'm still going to count it. This says that I am counting 3/1/4. So if I'm counting, it's 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, or 1/4, 2/1/4, 3/1/4. And this is what our kids need to be able to do. Counting the number of fourths. This will make more sense when we start looking at improper fractions and being able to determine what's a whole. So all of these things, all of these concepts, all have connections that we can make among them. So we have to be able to make those connections when our kids come home and they ask questions. We have to be able to support them too, in using the same language that they would hear at school, because we don't want to confuse them. Okay, so I am going to flip my camera back around. Okay, so I hope that helped out some with understanding why we are teaching fractions in the way that we are teaching them now.